In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the rear brake hoses on this Toyota Corolla. These are specifically for the disc brakes and calipers on this Toyota Corolla. The drum brakes will be a little bit different. Let's get started. Let's remove the wheel. Use a 21mm socket and remove all 5 lug nuts. If you have the locking nuts, make sure you of course have the locking key for them and break them free with a breaker bar on the ground before you lift up the vehicle. These locking lug nuts keys can break if you use an impact on them. Mine is broken free, so I'm ready to take them all off. Remove the wheel. Now with the wheel off, we can see our brake hose, and it leads to the caliper this way and to the brake line right over there. And I like to start here because that is usually the most problematic spot in the brake hose replacement procedure, because the fitting that's on the line will seize to the line. If that's the case, we have to approach it a little bit differently. It's still totally doable, but what we end up having to do is unthread the hose off of the line instead of the fitting off of the hose. So the first thing I want to do is make sure that this fitting breaks free. You're going to need a 10mm flare nut wrench. I don't recommend that you use a regular wrench, or this could actually round off the fitting and then you're in more trouble. Now, when you do this, a lot of times this bracket will want to move. So what I like to do is put some locking pliers on the hose side of things just to give it some extra support, and prop these down up against the body of the vehicle or the control arm or this trailing arm and lock them down tight. And now, see if this breaks free. And it looks like it just did, which is amazing, because sometimes what will happen is you'll see this line want to twist with it. This spins independently, so that is great news. We'll snug it up so it doesn't leak, and we'll go to the other side, because in this case I like to start on the caliper end, get everything mounted up to here, and then quickly swap these over to lose the least amount of brake fluid. Also, I will pinch off this old brake hose so that it does not leak any brake fluid once we disconnect it from the caliper. If you don't have these special pliers, you can just use some needle nose locking pliers and pinch it off. Now at the top of the brake caliper, let's disconnect the banjo bolt and therefore remove the hose. We'll use an 11mm socket if you have the original caliper. Mine has already been replaced, and I actually have a 12mm headed banjo bolt, so that's what I will use. Once again, for the original banjo bolt, it's an 11. Break this free. Some fluid will leak out, even though you pinch the line. That's normal. The caliper is full of fluid, and so is the line. Let's take these off of here. Take the banjo bolt out, the washers, and just set all of this aside. Now take your new hose, put the banjo bolt through it with a new copper washer, and on the bottom, another copper washer. Slide this hose in. There's a hook on the front that needs to line up, and then just thread this on so it can bottom out and we can torque it. Snug it. Torque this to 21 foot-pounds. All right, that's nice and tight. All you need to do is squish these 2 copper washers, and that'll create the seal that you're looking for. So I can speed up the bleeding process. I'm going to open the bleeder screw now, so as soon as I connect the hose on the other end, it'll automatically start pulling fluid through and pushing air out. Let's use a pocket screwdriver and remove the cap off of the bleeder screw, and a 10mm wrench to break this bleeder screw free. Now we'll just wait for fluid to make its way through. The gravity bleed is basically gravity pulling fluid into the caliper and pushing the air out. Now after this procedure, even though this should take care of most, if not all, of the air in the system, at least on this corner of the vehicle, you could perform a full manual brake bleed if you think it's necessary, which you'll see how to do at the end of the video. For now, let's just wait for our gravity bleed to be done, and that means no more air bubbles coming out of the bleeder screw and just clean brake fluid. Now right over here, there's going to be a bracket that has a 14mm headed bolt on it. You can stick a wrench or a socket and ratchet down there and try to break this free and remove it. Take that out, remove the hose. Take the new hose with its bracket, line it up, put that bolt in. And we'll snug up this bolt. Okay, get that nice and tight. Now back to this spot, have a collection bucket underneath so that when we break this free, the fluid goes into a collection receptacle as opposed to just on the ground. Now once you've broken this free, you can switch to a regular wrench. That will make things a whole lot easier because it's easier to grab the fitting like this. Before I take this out completely, I want to remove this locking clip here that holds the hose onto this bracket. Use some pliers and just wiggle it out. Finish unthreading this. Take the hose out, and let's put on the new one before too much brake fluid leaks out. Thread this on carefully. You want to make sure you do not cross-thread these fittings, otherwise you're making a brake line with a new fitting. So you want to make sure that it goes on smoothly. If you can spin it by hand, do that, because the chances of it cross-threading if you're just tightening it with your fingers is pretty much zero. Nope, that's bottomed out right there. It wants to spin the whole brake hose, so I'm going to clip this right in now. Make sure it's still lined up, which it is. Get the locking clip and tap it in. Go back to that flare nut wrench and tighten this up. You just want to give it a quick snug, about 1/8 of a turn after it bottoms out and gets snug. That way you can seal up that tapered fitting in there. It's also important that you clean up any brake fluid that may have leaked so that if there is a leak, you can easily detect it. Use brake parts cleaner for this. All right, we have a nice steady trickle of fluid here. I'm just going to let it do this for a second. Sometimes spinning the bleeder screw, there we go, it can help get a little bit extra air out. This is done now, so I'm going to close it off. Snug up the bleeder screw. We'll get any brake fluid that dripped off of here. Rinse this with brake parts cleaner. And cap off the bleeder screw with this cover. Put the wheel back on. Start all 5 lug nuts, bottom them out in a cross pattern, and also in a cross pattern, torque them to 76 foot-pounds. Double check them. Pump up the brake pedal. Top off the master cylinder and take it for a road test. The brake master cylinder is located on the driver's side of the engine bay up against the firewall, and Toyota was nice enough to give a little cutout here so you can access it without removing much at all. Grab onto this rubber weather stripping and pull it away on this last hook, and then pull it in the other direction on this next hook. Now there's 2 tabs here that we have to press in and pull up on, and that will release this little plate with the weather stripping. Fold it out of your way, and there's your master cylinder. If there's a lot of debris over here, wipe it off with a rag. Mine's not in too bad of shape here, it's pretty clean, so I'm going to remove the cap. If you read it closely, it'll say to only use .3 or 4 brake fluid, and that's exactly what we'll be using. This master cylinder has brand new brake fluid in it because I just repaired a big leak. So there is no reason for me to extract the brake fluid that I just put in. However, if you have existing brake fluid in here that you didn't just put in, I would remove the old brake fluid with a little straw, and there's typically a vacuum pump that you can use or a fluid transfer pump that is able to get down in here and extract it all, and then of course recycle it properly. As for me, I'll just be topping this off with brand new brake fluid all the way to the full line, which you can read on the side of it. Once you've filled it up, cap it off. Now these vehicles will come with either rear drum brakes or rear disc brakes. We happen to have rear disc brakes, but the sequence is exactly the same. So you start at the right rear wheel, that's the passenger side rear. Then you move over to the left front, that being the driver's side front. Then you top off the master cylinder. Then you move over to the driver's side rear, or the left rear. And then you finish off with the right front, that's the passenger side front. Then top off the master cylinder again, and if you think you need to bleed some more, do it again in the same sequence until no air bubbles come out of any of the bleeder screws. We are now at the right rear wheel. This is our first caliper we're going to bleed, so I'm going to pop the bleeder screw cap off. I have an assistant in the vehicle that's ready to pump up the brake pedal and create pressure. And with a 10mm wrench, I'm going to be ready to open the bleeder screw once there's pressure built in the system. Go ahead and pump up the brake pedal, please.
Holding.
All right, holding pressure, so I'm going to break this free.
Floor.
All right, quite a bit of air came out of there. Snug it up and go again. We're going to pump and bleed until there's no more air bubbles coming out of this bleeder screw.
Holding. Floor.
All right, let's do it one more time. Go again.
Holding. Floor.
I like this. This was nice and clean. I'm going to cap this off. You can let go of the brake pedal now. Clean off anything that may have dripped down. And of course, cap off your bleeder screw. Now we'll move over to the left front wheel. Now our second wheel is going to be the left front caliper. Remove the bleeder screw cap. And same thing, I'm going to put my bleeder hose on the bleeder screw. Have an assistant in the vehicle. Go ahead and pump up the brake pedal, please.
Holding.
All right, by the way, this takes an 8mm socket, no longer a 10.
Floor.
Break that free. Okay, go again.
Holding. Floor.
This one's actually not bad. Let's do it one last time. Go again.
Holding. Floor.
All right, you can let go of the brake pedal. Wipe off any brake fluid that may have dripped. Rinse it with brake parts cleaner if needed, and cap this off. Now let's fill up the master cylinder, remove the cap, fill it up all the way to the max line, cap it back off. And then move over to the left rear caliper and then the front right caliper and do the same that you just saw me do on the other side rear and this side front. Let's fill up the master cylinder one last time. Take the cap off, top it off up to the max line, cap it back off, and put this cap back on here. Make sure this is still hooked in. All right, there we go. Job is done. Put the wheels back on and torque them to 76 foot-pounds.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.